I'm here with Lauren Thermos. Hi, Lauren.
Hi.
Hi, thanks for joining. We are going
Thanks
to
for
take
having
a
me.
total detour right now. We are going to go into a session on gaining confidence to explore marketing in the metaverse. And you might say, why do we care about this? Why are we talking about the metaverse? And the reason is because fundamentally, what is happening with new technologies in general is that we are creating new ways to create. We are creating new places to create, to collaborate, and to engage. On the creator side, they're there. On the brand side, we're all dipping our feet. And so I think that it's almost impossible to talk about the future of the creator economy and what the creator experience might be in the future without talking about these new technologies. And if you just flash back to 15 years ago, when what is now fondly called Web 2 was, taking off, and we were all like, what is this content? And like, there was all these platforms, and you had Twitter and you had bloggers, and who created content and how they found their audience. Like, all this was shifting. And yes, it's like continued to evolve, but what's happening now is like a step change. And so I have invited Lauren. Lauren is the Senior Director of Global and US Integrated Media at E.L.F. Beauty. She has led some of E.L.F.'s Beauty's initial forays into the metaverse. And so I wanted to ask her to come here today because what I love about Lauren is that she is a very bold marketer. She is so strategic. So don't think that she's off in the metaverse creating wild experiences with no tie back to the business. She is one of the most rigorous individuals I know when it comes to measuring the investment of marketing dollars, but she is also not afraid to experiment. And that's what we're going to kind of explore with her today, and hopefully have some of that boldness rub off on us. So thanks, Lauren.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited. You know, I could talk about this all day.
I know. And I wish we had more time, but let's just jump into it. Could you define the metaverse for us? Give us a lay of the land. And I'm going to pop up one of your slides for you.
Okay, sounds good. Well, I put this slide as the first slide to introduce my presentation because I think a lot of people are thinking this, like, what the fuck is it? Why all of a sudden has it come to fruition? You know, we haven't spoken about it before, but in the last 10 months, it's absolutely skyrocketed in interest. And the thing I think about when, it's first starting out, depending on, where you are in the organization, your organization, and, regardless of what you think, if you think it's bullshit or if you think it's hype, the metaverse is a real term and it has a real definition. And it truly is best seen as like the umbrella of housing multiple virtual worlds. And so when I think about, what the metaverse is, and simplifying the definition and getting your head around it, I really like to start with what it's not. And what it's not is it's not any one thing. And these are the three things that, everyone, whether you're having a conversation with a friend or it's within your organization, lots of people will refer back to it being, it's Web3 or it's gaming or it's virtual reality. The metaverse is best understood to be, like I said, the umbrella for all of these things and more. And the reason why it's not just these three things is because these three things are distinct components of the metaverse. And so when you see the words Web3, the easiest thing to default to when you see it is to think of, oh, that is actually the thing it's built on. Web3 is a protocol. It is the blockchain piece. So the metaverse can exist on top of blockchain, but it's not all of the metaverse because, as we all know, we are still, playing on social networks that are housed on what we call Web 2. We're using games like Fortnite and Roblox. So these things can coexist and they can both be homes to the metaverse. The next, why it's not just gaming. Gaming is really the thing that you can do within the metaverse. It's the action. And while some of the gaming worlds like Roblox and Fortnite can operate as metaverses, overarchingly, when someone says to you, it's just gaming, the best way to anchor yourself back is that, oh, that is something I can do in the metaverse. And when we get to virtual reality is really that simulation and experience that can be realistic or it can be imaginative. And that is like the mechanics of something that, when you're in the metaverse, you can actually use virtual reality to create a world within a world. And that could be in real life. You're at an event and you scan a snap code and you're taken into another world. That is the use of virtual reality. So these three things are all part of the metaverse, but it's best to see them as components of the metaverse.
Maybe we could just ask folks,
Yep.
I'm going to throw up a poll,
Yeah.
like, have you been to the metaverse? Would love to know where folks are at there.
We've gone straight in, guys.
So let's see. Let's kind of see what folks are at. So one of the things too, you talked a little bit about what it's not. Are there any other myths that you feel like you need to bust about the metaverse while we're here?
I think there's a couple. When I think of when we're going to get to the definition, I think my favorite one that I like always bring up is that you must have a metaverse godmother or a chief metaverse officer. Look, the reality is that most businesses can't just afford to create a whole new arm and a whole new kind of discipline within their current marketing mix. So whilst that it could be a North Star and you might want a leader in this space, you really can lean into your own digital teams or any, person within the business that has a natural aptitude or interest in technologies. I really think that this is a digital transformation scenario for most businesses. So if you're told you need to be quick and quickly get a chief metaverse officer, that's probably one thing you can probably look within first before jumping the gun. So you really know how the metaverse fits within your organization and how big a place it's going to play for you guys.
It reminds me of back in the days, this always happens with a new technology. You end up with a chief new technology officer. Yep. I think your approach is definitely more sound. It looks like a lot of people are good. They're not convinced yet, which is fine, but we do have some who love it. So good to know. So maybe you could just talk about what it is. What is the metaverse?
I think that's where we're going to get to. So if we go to the next slide, I think the definition in which I anchor our organization in, and anyone that I speak to about the initiatives that we're participating in within the metaverse, is that to see the metaverse as one or more virtual worlds linked together into a perceived virtual universe. So the metaverse can be one ecosystem. And when I think of that one ecosystem, it could be Roblox. Roblox is, a virtual world that is perceived as its own little economy. I think that is the easiest ways to anchor if you have one virtual world. Mm-hmm. And then when I think of the multiple, which is the North Star that we're trying to get to, is how do we connect multiple virtual worlds that we are currently participating in to create one universe? So what is E.L.F's full universe when we're thinking about all the different things we're doing within the metaverse? The best way to see the metaverse in this form and understand what does that translate to is these 4 buckets. I think the visuals here help anchor, because when you say, okay, the metaverse is virtual worlds, you go, what's a virtual world? And the virtual worlds we have in our systems today comprise of virtual environments. An example of that is Meta's Horizons. That's a workspace environment. We have gaming virtual worlds. So within Roblox, Nintendo, Xbox, Epic, these all have games within them that could be either standalone or connecting to other types of games. We got social. So I always joke, everyone thinks they're not in the metaverse. Everyone's in the metaverse. It's just how you talk about it, because each of these social ecosystems are their own virtual world. And then the last one is NFTs and crypto. Both of these fall in the Web3 bucket because of the way in which they are built. They're built on blockchain. They're built with protocol that is different to these other 3 potential worlds. It's not to say that, Decentraland, that is in Web3. It's not to say that you couldn't do any of these things in the future on this protocol. But I think when categorizing it for yourselves, it is best to think of the 4 different types of worlds you have. And then when you're creating a metaverse, how do you connect all these different platforms so they're either speaking to each other and that your consumer can actually interact with you easily across all of them? But I find this visualization, I had to do this for myself. I had an aha moment and I was like, okay, I need to visualize it.
Can you walk us through just some of the first things you did at E.L.F in this realm?
Yeah. So E.L.F by nature, we have a culture of testing and learning, and playing, and we often think about failure as we want to fail fast. So we started with first 2 years back trying different things as they were coming up. So for example, we were the first beauty brand on Twitch. we were one of the first beauty brands to launch an NFT, which was back in 2021. So we really started with testing, putting our foot in the water and testing a couple of different things just to see how our community would react with us being in those spaces. And then like understanding, what did that actually return to the business? Fast forward to today, after, a sequence of testing, we haven't stopped testing, but we really are taking a moment to go, okay, what does this mean for us when we think about the future, and connecting all the tests that we've done and creating, a bigger ecosystem. So we really always look inward at our own ecosystem and think about our consumer first, because the metaverse and your consumer can't exist without a community. So we really are trying to understand right now, how do we connect the dots between certain virtual worlds, and what value does that then offer to the consumer? So that is the process of understanding, is there incentive to participate here? What incentives are we currently giving them? Will they want to do this? We're actually they're having one-to-one conversations with our community as well. So even if you haven't started yet, no one's too late. I do want to preface, this is early days, but we're really taking that moment now to map out the future by understanding our consumers' needs, their shopping behaviors, how we can make their lives easier. And, it could turn out that we go, well, it's not for us because, we're learning something else. I don't think that's going to happen, but it really is that leaning in and listening to the community to make sure, what we're putting our bets on, like where we're putting our bets, is actually valuable for them and the business.
Go straight into a question. Maybe you mentioned, first of all, I thought it was hilarious back in 2021, like it was last year.
I know, right? Back in 2021.
It was so long. Anyway, but there's a question, could NFTs become a vehicle for building brand ambassador programs? So curious, is that how you were testing it, or did you have a different use case in mind?
So I'd say NFTs, I comment on this all the time, and I know I won't have my hands up for this one. I think the NFTs, they're like a digital, like the modern day loyalty program. So to answer the question, yes, they absolutely can be used as part of an ambassador program. But I think the most successful way to use them is and the most useful to your ambassador is ensuring that they can pick up an NFT, but what is the value of having that? And so what value can you give your consumer through this technology? So I really see NFTs as a digital loyalty card. So if you think of it as a loyalty card and they opt in for this, what are you going to pay them back with? And I think that's the question that everyone is pondering in the industry right now. What is the utility and what is the incentive? So if it's something that you're interested in and it goes back to your own values as a company and your business roadmap and digital transformation strategies, then absolutely it's a place to explore. But it will be what is in it for them to do this is the question you need to be able to answer, so they actually adopt the technology, because it's still relatively small and niche.
You've talked about how everything you do in the metaverse, it rallies around your community, but how are you seeing the metaverse impact creators in particular?
I'd say for some creators that are not digital designers or in Web3, it's confusing. So it's in a confusing space. And so with it's there's lots of possibility for creators, but in order to unleash the possibilities, it really means for brands understanding what's its use case, and then how does it add value, and then bringing that creator along that journey. So if you were to flip tomorrow and say, I'm actually going to switch our traditional loyalty program and evolve it into NFTs, then you're really going to have to think about who is your audience. Some target audiences, if they're predominantly more male, might have more experience in this space, so their knowledge is higher. So therefore there might be less education that needs to be done for the creator. But if it's someone that hasn't participated in anything crypto before and doesn't invest in digital currencies, you're really going to have to bring them on your journey with you, so you don't confuse them, that they understand the value and that you're learning together. And I think there's a vulnerability in that builds relationships with the people that you are wanting to bring into your community. If I was the creator side, I would see it as a place to explore, and a lot of them are exploring, and lots of brands within the crypto space are doing that, but they're looking at it as, what value can I bring to the person investing in them as the creator? And they're looking at things like events, access. So really it's this new digital currency that gives access to the same things that we're already doing. So I think that there's a couple of layers, but to simplify it, thinking about it as a deeper connection with your creator, that you can reward them a lot more easily and faster based on the technology, is probably one of the better ways to frame it, so you can really think about what that map is and how you bring them with you on the journey.
One of the questions that I want to get to is great question. How do you go about finding influential members of a community in the metaverse? Like, do you have a process or?
Well, it starts with yourself. It started with me, like a natural curiosity. Like, I've spent a lot of time educating and upskilling myself. I think you have to want to learn about it. It's not going to be like, I can get a tool and I'm going to find a metaverse, someone that's in the metaverse that loves the metaverse and understands it. I think in this case, it's really starting with, if you have low or no knowledge of the metaverse or the Web3 space, it's starting to research, starting to listen to the community by finding the different communities. And the best place to go, I know Twitter's getting a bad rap at the moment in the press, but Twitter is a wonderful resource for finding community members that are very passionate. I can follow up in the chat, maybe a couple of creators that I follow and thought leaders. I think making sure that you're reading some of the trade press. NFT Now is a great resource and very much focused on the NFT community and what's happening in that space. And so if you get yourself started into the rabbit hole, you're going to find more. But I think Twitter and NFT Now as a publication are the two places I would start in upskilling and learning about, who's in the community, who's doing what, so you can then propel yourself into the next stages of research.
Just given time, I'm moving from one thing to another, but I would love to know what, I think what E.L.F is doing is great, but would love to hear from you. What other brands are you looking to as inspiration in this space? Who's doing it? Yeah. Who's doing it right?
So I think about this in two ways. There's token and those that can see the long vision. And at E.L.F, and even myself personally and professionally, I always want to see the long vision and look to brands that are doing and creating something for the long term. And the examples I have of this on both sides, so it helps anchor you as you're researching. The brands that are just doing one-off things, I absolutely love and appreciate testing and learning, because we do that too. But you can start to see a pattern if there's something like, there was a QSR that dropped a burger NFT. But all it was the name of the burger. Like, there was no access to a free burger. There was no community. There was nothing associated. It was just a picture of the burger, for example. So when you see things like that, it goes, okay, that's on that side of the spectrum. When I look to who inspires me to actually answer your question, is those that actually are creating a system. And the brands that come to mind are iconic brands. It's Gucci, it's Nike, it's Adidas. And I can't believe it's coming out of my mouth, it's also Gary Vee and V Friends. Because if you knew me, I wouldn't say I'm a big fan of Gary Vee, some of his concepts, but I do think the way in which he set up V Friends is very clever, and it's very much thinking about the interconnection of the NFT project and the community. And when you think like that, you're really thinking about, what's in it for them? How do you give them value? How do you connect them with the other people in the community? And how do you bridge the virtual with the in real life piece and bringing that together, and really, celebrating and offering more to the people within your community? So I think looking at those brands and how they use technologies across multiple platforms in the metaverse and how those technologies talk to each other is like the gold star, in my opinion.
There's a question about, how as a brand, like, can I get started? Like, what do I even focus on in my early days?
So I'd say, first off, define the metaverse. Go look at every definition that exists out there. I literally did do that. I went and Googled what the metaverse is. I literally broke down this word in many different ways just to understand, all the differences of opinion. And I actually did an exercise with our exec team where I got them to do a survey monkey and define what they think the metaverse is, just to kind of show that, the universe is like, we're all kind of talking about the same thing, but words do matter. So we really wanted to make sure and refine, like, what does that mean for us? So doing that for you as yourselves and as a brand, I think, is a great starting point. Then it's understanding your own community and your own audience. Like, how, who is your audience? Like, do they have a knowledge of crypto? Are they already in the, the metaverse in terms of like gaming, social. If you have Facebook group where we actually able to talk and survey our community, and we actually asked some very pointed questions to even understand if they knew what it was and like have they participated. So that gave us a quick dip on like, okay, where is our audience at, and then where else could we find, and do we need to find other people to complement and grow? I think learning about NFTs is really important, and its functionality and the technology. It doesn't mean you have to go jump and create an NFT straight away. It's really understanding how does this play into your digital transformation strategy, and how does this connect to your audience and community. And the last one was meant to say learn from those that do, and that's looking at the guys that are really creating that long-term vision and roadmap, where they're interconnecting their digital technologies and systems to create immense value for their customer. And that's Adidas, Nike, and Gucci.
Fantastic. I think that the things that jump out to me, that you talk a lot about loyalty. I think everybody here is focused on customer loyalty, and you said community, and everybody here wants that brand community, or they want that brand, that creator community. They think about audiences as community, and I think that's where it can be so easy to go onto the fluffy side of the spectrum, if you will, versus the authentic side. And I think you've really given us some good food for thought in how to truly embrace some of these technologies and learn them, and in doing so, maybe discover a path for your brand. It might not be for everyone, might not be for everyone yet, but I think there's definitely a lot here. Lauren, thank you so much for joining today. I know it was whirlwind. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Of course, no, I love being here. I would like, obviously, there's a lot to unpack. So I think that my high note is that nobody knows anything, and you can learn everything. So
I love it.
Just curious, you'll be able to pick it up, because it's not new. How we connect with our audience is not new. It's just a new means to do so. So
fantastic. Thank you, Lauren. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.